Hi, so this is lesson 4.5, Biology, Cognition, and Learning. So today the objective is students will be able to describe the essential characteristics of learning and apply learning principles to explain behaviors. So we talked about how learning can happen by pairing. We talked about how learning can happen by um, rewards and punishment with operant conditioning. Now we're going to talk about how your biology, how like your actual body plays a role in learning, but we're also going to talk about how thought process plays a role in learning because both of these also play a role in learning. So biology does play a role in learning. So first type of learning that we're going to talk about is what we call taste aversion. And this is where you develop a strong distaste for food after getting sick. And really, this was a survival tactic, right? It's what taught us before we knew if things were expired or had gone bad. It taught us what to and not to eat because if we got sick from it, we would develop this strong dislike for it and we wouldn't eat it again. And the way that we discovered this was by a man named John Garcia. And what John Garcia did was he actually did a test with rats and he would give them chemo. And then he found that when he gave them chemo and paired it with food, or radiation, I guess I should say, when he gave them radiation and paired that with food, the rats would develop a strong dislike for that food. But he would try it with other things. He would give them radiation and then do a bright light. That didn't work. He'd give them radiation and give them something to see or something to look. And the really only thing that they developed any sort of a reaction to was the food only. So, really, what does this show us is that this is a biological response. It's your body's way of protecting itself and learning what foods you can and cannot eat. The other one that we have here too with biological limits on learning is we went with the pig. We're sticking with the animal things here, and pigs cannot fly, right? Kind of sad. It'd be kind of fun if they could. And this idea is that there is a biological constraint as far as what can we actually learn, right? So biology does prevent us from learning certain things. Another example, you're never going to be able to teach a hamster to wash its face, right? A hamster might clean itself, but trying to get it to just specifically wash its face is probably not going to happen because that biology just isn't there for that. Now, in some cases, we can teach animals to do behaviors that aren't natural to them. So it's behaviors that they can maybe still do, but still aren't natural. So you can train pigs to do certain things, right? Can't teach them to fly, but there are other behaviors that you can teach them. But what we learn after teaching animals is they go back to kind of their own ways. And we call this the instinctive drift. And this is just the fact that learned behavior will gradually revert to biologically predisposed patterns. And here we have cognitive learning. So cognitive, remember, is your thought process. How do we think about things? So how does our thought process play a role in learning? Well, there's a couple different ways. The first way that we're going to talk about is insight learning. And this is where you have just a sudden understanding of a problem. So maybe you've been looking at something for a long time, trying to figure it out, and you've been thinking about it and thinking about it, and you're not sure, and then all of a sudden it kind of hits you, and you're like, oh, wait, I could do this, and this would work perfectly. That's insight learning. So it just kind of comes to you with no rhyme or reason. You've just been thinking about it, and you've been processing it in your mind, and that's what has allowed you to come to the final solution. There's also what we call latent learning. And this is where learning has occurred, but it's not evident until there's a reward or incentive. So maybe you say, oh, I don't know how to do laundry. I don't know how to do laundry. I don't know how to do laundry. And then all of a sudden you're all out of clean clothes and all of a sudden you know how to do laundry. So this idea that, yeah, you do know how to do something or you have learned it, but until there's an incentive provided, you don't do it. And we think that this may happen or that a cognitive map may play a role in this. So cognitive map. A cognitive map is just a mental layout so that really you are picking up on more information than maybe you realize. And again, until there's a reward or an incentive to do so, you just don't realize that you maybe have that information. Another type of cognitive learning is going to be extrinsic and intrinsic motivation. So we're talking a little bit about incentives here, and that's exactly what we see here. So extrinsic motivation is going to be where you're motivated by outside rewards. In this case, we see that this person is motivated by the trophy, right? But money might also be an extrinsic motivator. I'm motivated to do this because of the money involved. Intrinsic motivation is going to be where you are motivated by an internal factor. And this person is motivated by just the love of playing soccer, that soccer makes them happy. So anything that you do just because you enjoy doing it is your internal motivation. So today we talked about how biology plays a role in learning, the fact that there are some limits placed on us just because of the natural biology of us as people or as animals, and then also how does our thought process or cognitive play a role in learning?